One, two, three. Everything's working fine for me. Participants, hello. Damn. Hi, I'm just going through and promoting people to panelists. Bear with me for 1 minute. Okay, this meeting is being recorded. It is now 6:35. And welcome everybody to the Affordable Housing Trust meeting. I'm supposed to hold on one second. Let me see here. I just want to pull the agenda up really quickly. Just getting started a little bit. I hope everybody can hear me. Good. I want to welcome a couple of new members. We have 3 new members that I think are new to most people here. I see Ananda on the screen here. Also elected or appointed to the committee was Krista and Robert Sloanaker. And Robert was traveling tonight and Krista had a conflict, so he may or may not join us. I'm not sure. But welcome. How do you say your name? Can you tell us what you would prefer to call? And do you want to talk a little bit about who you are and what your background is and why you're interested in the Affordable Housing Trust? Yes, you.
You got it right. My name is Nanda Tim Payne. I am 4th generation from Berkshire County. My family has consecutively moved south. My family are all in design and construction. So even though I don't do that, I grew up on job sites and with drawings and blueprints all around me. And I am deeply committed to being part of community where we make it so that everybody who's part of the community can live here.
I really appreciate that. And I think you'll be a great asset to us. And we're really happy to have you.
Thank you. Carolyn, good to see you.
Hi, Nanda. How are you? Good to see you.
And hello to the other folks I know too. It's just been a really long time since I've seen Carolyn.
So we can go ahead and, introduce, I've got the town of Great Barrington here, but I'm actually Fred Clark, which I can rename. I use the town's account for these meetings, so it defaults to that. So pardon me while I'm not a technical expert here. And your screen is Bill Cook and John Katz, who are both original and founding members. Bill is the person who was instrumental at creating the Affordable Housing Trust here in Great Barrington and was the chairman, and I still rely on him as if he was still the chairman here and for lots of good things, and he'll be talking to it later. John is an incredible person who's involved in a bunch of different committees here, and he's our finance person and banking person there. Also on your screen is Shep Evans. Shep is our scribe, I guess we'll call him, our recorder. He's the one responsible for helping us with our minutes. Who else is on the screen here? And Carolyn and Aaron, both from Berkshire Habitat for Humanity. We're going to do a little bit of business first, and then we would like to hear from Carolyn and Aaron about the Great Barrington projects that are going on here. So I want to call this meeting to order. This meeting is being recorded. The statement is on the agenda, and I don't believe I have to reread it. All votes will be roll call votes this evening. Shep sent meeting minutes out for, let me get my dates correct here. I believe it was December, February, and March. December 1st, February 15th, and March 8th. Can I have a motion to accept? We can vote on these individually or as a group.
Sure. Motion to approve minutes from December, February, and March meetings of this year.
Seconded.
Seconded. Is there any comments or any changes that anyone would like to make? I have to do a roll call vote. So Bill Cook, please, yes or no?
Aye. Yes.
Don, yes or no?
Yes.
And Nanda, can you vote, please?
Abstain.
Okay, and the chair votes yes. So the meeting minutes are carried. So thank you, Shep, for bringing us up to date. As always, good job. I think without going any further, I'd like to hear from Carolyn and Aaron on the updates. For those of you who are joining us later, we actually have two different projects that the Affordable Housing Trust is involved with that Habitat is helping us with and executing. The first one was or is what we refer to as the North Plain Road site, otherwise formerly known by the family whose name's escaping me now. But yeah, and we had an RFP, and Habitat was successful. They are in the process of planning up to 20 units of home ownership on that site. And I'm quite pleased with the progress. I will just tell you by way of context that the way our agreement works with them is the town is providing the infrastructure, the roads, sewer, water, drainage in general to the, and we were able to do that because Massachusetts has a very generous program called MassWorks. we've already succeeded in winning $69,000 of money for planning and engineering, which we have engaged White Engineering, and they've been busily working. They did a whole field survey of not only the site, but all of the surrounding streets. Sorry, that's my puppy. He just lost privileges.
Oh, no.
He's gonna have to sit out for right now. Anyway, I wanted to, before we jump into the Habitat presentation on the North Plain roadside, to tell you what's going on. The second phase of the MassWorks grant, which is the money to pay for the construction for the infrastructure, is due in early June. And Chris Rembold has the outlines of a grant application. We are in the pipeline for the money for the construction. And the plans that I believe they're going to share tonight will be part of that application to pay for the MassWorks, to be included in the MassWorks grant application. So that's by way of context. In terms of timeline, I'll just say that we expect that award to be around the fall, early fall, either September or October. At that point, we'll know whether we have the construction money, and we can go forward with lining up a contractor and all that. I believe that Habitat is going to be going in front of the planning board this summer. But maybe Carolyn or Aaron can talk about that. So I've done enough talking. Time for me to mute and shut up.
Well, you did a great job, Fred. Thank you for giving us context on this. And Aaron is going to, because I'm calling in from my cell phone because evidently my computer decided to reboot Zoom and it's whatever at the same time. So Aaron's going to be going through the slides and I'll be talking through them.
I just need permission.
Okay. Fred, can you share with Aaron?
I promoted, well, I'm not a great technicalist here, but
You would go down to share screen.
I see share screen.
Yep, hit share screen and then pick Aaron's name.
Got it. Who can share? I just made all the panelists be able to share. Well, because I only have the options of only host or panelist. So you should be able to share. There you go.
There you go. Excellent.
We can see it.
Yay. So thank you again for kind of putting everything in context. And I do want to let you know, Aaron, can you go to the next slide, please? With the site plan. Thank you. This will be a little bit hard to see, and it's not the final draft, but what we have done is laid it out with the maximum square footage that we can have. And right now it's showing 19 homes. With some tweaks, we could possibly get 20, but that would mean we would shrink the size of some of these houses. But the primary reason that White Engineering designed it this way is so that we wouldn't go bigger, but we could go smaller, because really our intention is making sure that the whole we're calling it sort of in our mind a village, the whole development will be determined on bedroom size and whatnot based on what the community is looking for. So we'll be starting some additional community conversations. One of the local realtors has allowed us to, they're going to let us host at their place in Housatonic. So we have one, we don't have the date nailed down. We're waiting for them to come back, but we think it'll be the first week of June. But this will give us the ability to move forward with the MassWorks grant and get feedback from the community. So this is not set in stone, but this is a really good representation of what we are planning on doing. We have internally and with a few of our partners have already looked at some things that we want to change because we got this plan back today, but we really need to get something that's semi-finalized for it to go to MassWorks, because this will not affect the engineering part. We just want to move houses over a little bit here and there. So, Erin, can you go to the next slide? Thank you. We wanted to show you some typical house designs. Again, they're a combination of ranches, 2 stories, 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, some that have flex space, but these are just some typical designs that we'll be tweaking, and we'll be getting feedback from the community at these community engagement hearings. But we wanted to have the square footage placed on the site plan so that people could see the approximate size of the house. And all of those square footages are in alignment with the Department of Housing and Community Development guidelines, because as you know, this will be this project will all go on the Affordable Housing Register. So this is another one of the designs. I don't know how fast we want to go on that, Erin, but you can see we're trying to do a couple of things. One is give variety. We don't want a cookie cutter project. And many of these houses can be turned based on the topography, we just don't want them all lined up in a row. So we'll be interspersing them based on the land and also on the needs of the community. Erin, can you go to the next slide? These are another picture of a couple of ranches and a couple of things that we know people have been interested in. We wanted to make sure that we relayed is all of our houses that will be around the common green. We purposely set them that way so that we're building a sense of community. In the major green, we would like to have a gazebo so that people in the neighborhood could enjoy common space. But a lot of those decisions will be made as the families are chosen from the lottery, being able to make decisions on it. We'll be building to zero energy ready standards. So that will give the possibility of putting solar on, and those would be based on individual desires of the families and the units, but these will be highly efficient houses. We're going to make sure that we have a buffer around the whole development to make sure that we preserve the character of Housatonic. And we also are building into the homes whole house water filtration systems. We understand that has been a concern of folks. And the other thing that we just learned today, that we'll also be installing the infrastructure so that people will have access to be able to plug in electric cars when that becomes a thing. You want to go to, and I already talked about the deed restriction. And as I mentioned, we'll be doing community engagement. We also want to make sure that all voices are heard. So we'll be working with some of the partners that we work with in Pittsfield and throughout the community to make sure that everybody is aware of the opportunity. And we like to call this as a equal opportunity situation. A lot of times they refer to it as a lottery. And a lot of people think when you hear lottery, it's like, oh, I would never win the lottery. No, this is set up so that everybody has a chance to get in on purchasing one of these homes at an affordable price. And it will maintain the ability to have affordability in our community for a lifetime.
Can I ask some questions about the community engagement?
Yep, sure.
Tell me more about what community engagement will look like in South County.
So we'll be having listening sessions, Ananda, throughout a variety of different places. Mainly, most of them will take place in Housatonic, and that's the first phases are really about what people that live in the neighborhood think about the house designs and all of that. And then we'll be holding a host of different meetings right within Great Barrington. We'll be engaging with some of the nonprofit community and businesses to make sure that their employees are aware of it. We'll be reaching out to Multicultural Bridge. I'd love to reach out to your organization because we really want to make sure that this project is representative of people that are living and working in Great Barrington and Housatonic, so that we're really getting opportunities out there for people that live and work here, because we know how challenging it is right now for people to find a place to live.
who are you partnering with people in Housatonic to co-create the listening sessions?
Yes, we usually do. Habitat, that's part of what Habitat does. We have some community engagement specialists. We have community navigators. We were just awarded another Commonwealth Corps member that will be working 1 day a week in Great Barrington and creating listening sessions like on a day-to-day basis, as well as inviting people to the community engagement meetings.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just wanting to make sure that you're having direct connections with people who are already of the community.
Mhm.
As you know, rural communities in general are hard nuts to crack, and South County is, we take it up a notch on suspicion of outsider status. So I want to make sure that we get you situated to hear the voices and have local ownership early.
Yeah, and we felt like right from the very beginning, we were working with folks in Great Barrington and Housatonic. We met with all of the neighbors in Housatonic, and they were able to really share what their hopes for the neighborhood was, what their concerns were, and that really influenced the way that we went about designing the project. And we'll continue to do that same work because we don't want to build something that people don't want to live in. And we also don't want to build something that people don't feel that they can be a part of. And we're actually calling our South County tables affordable housing champions. So they would actually have decision-making on the Habitat project. So you'll probably start seeing a blizzard. I'm saying that blizzard to poor Aaron of Facebook invitations about that starting in the summer.
And are you getting responsiveness? I know that you've used Facebook on the Grove Street. Are you getting responsiveness from South County people with the Facebook posts?
We have people are, I think there's a combination of that. And then what we do is we always do mailings out to all of the abutters and inviting them, like we'll have even though we really won't be breaking ground, we'll be having an invitation to see the property and just inviting everybody in Housatonic to come to that. And what we find is people are very excited about coming and sharing their thoughts about the project. I mean, that's what we found on Grove Street. Like all of the neighbors have come and we've gotten to see them, and they've been such a wealth of information and stories and saying, oh, I hope you really keep this feature. And we've been able to honor all of those things. So we take community engagement because we build with, not for, a family and a community. So we really do look at this as our opportunity to be together in this work.
That's great.
And Habitat's been great. They've been involved for over 1.5 years now. And
Yeah.
I believe we've had a couple of meetings before we even got to this point. And I believe Carolyn and Aaron have developed an email list, so every time they could, they collected contact information from neighbors and things like that. When the engineer was out working on the site, every abutter, I believe, got notified ahead of time that they were going to be there doing the land survey and things like that. We've been trying very hard. It's been tough because of COVID and because of the extended time it takes to develop this stuff to keep the neighborhood involved, keep the village of Housatonic involved.
Yeah. In terms of, I love the variation that you have in terms of like, do you have a target for how many 2-bedroom, how many 4, or is that something that is going to be responsive? I mean, I guess, is that driven by the site or is that driven by the lottery process?
It's kind of both. So we are not planning at this time to have any 2-bedroom units. So everything will have 3-bedroom or 4-bedroom. Most are going to be 3-bedroom because from the research we've seen and the people we spoke to, that seems to be the need. So even if a family, quote unquote, could fit in a 2-bedroom, we're going to have flex space because we believe a lot of the people that may purchase these homes may be at the early age of their families. So we don't want them to have to figure out like, oh, now I have to sell my house to get a bigger house, we want to have flex space that they could grow into that if they needed to. So that's sort of our plan. And our experience has been that, at least in Pittsfield and North County, 3 bedrooms seem to be the most popular. So we'll be determining how many are 3 bedrooms and how many 4 bedrooms as we are having conversations with the people that may very well apply for the lottery. And as soon as we have a tighter timeline and a total price point on everything, we want to get the lottery done as early in the process as we can to get the first families chosen so they can get their sweat equity going. They can make some decisions about like the gazebos and, stuff like that. And then also what the color schemes for the units will be. Like, all of ours are in gray right now, but there will be a variety of colors and a little bit on the trims and just different things like that. We really believe that it's important for families to be able to individualize as much as possible during the construction phase in the areas that, really are important to them.
I just want to mention that while there's 19 or 20 house units, we're not going to be building them all at once.
That's correct.
The plan was always to sort of do it in 3 phases of, maybe 6 or 7 houses at a time. However, the plan is to put all of the infrastructure in at one time. So we'll have all of the sites ready to go. And depending upon how quickly they sell out, how quickly things get developed, can move on to the next phase right away or whenever it's necessary.
Well, I mean, we are in a housing crisis, so I think it's necessary yesterday, and we're all doing our best with that.
Yeah.
But my question is, can you say more about how the lottery will work and who it will be open to?
Yeah, so the original thought process was that we will have a couple of units that are at 100% AMI. And for those of you who don't know what AMI is, it's the area median income, and it's depending on your family size. So we will have some units that are at 100%. We'll have some units that are at 80%. We'll have, I think right now, quite a few units that are at 70 and 60%. And one of the reasons I say that is we're learning from what we saw going on in the Lenox Affordable Housing Lottery. The commentary that we've heard is people felt like that you had to almost be a unicorn to qualify, that the price point was at such that you needed to make X number of money to afford it, but the income guideline was such a tight space that it was hard to make the numbers work. So we're really looking at that as we move forward. Remember that most of these units, if we are successful in getting the MassWorks grant, we probably will not begin to do house construction and probably till spring or early summer of 2023. So we're also concerned about what will be going on in house pricing and whatnot. We are looking at multiple ways of getting those houses up quickly, with being a combination of Habitat's normal stick built, which are very volunteer friendly, but we're also looking at panelized homes where we would purchase the panels and then put them together, because that will speed up the construction time, and also the potential for some modulars, because we really are taking what I see as a crisis in affordable housing right now very seriously, so that if we can speed up the timeline by doing a combination of things, that's what we'll end up doing.
And our AMI figure is for the county as a whole, right?
Actually, Pittsfield and some of those towns are a little bit different than Great Barrington. So there's actually, for Berkshire County, there's 2 different sets of numbers.
Right,
They
there's
just came out with new numbers that went up 8.7%. And the numbers always change in March and are produced in April. So it's kind of a good time for us. But we'll structure it so that people that get in, again, we want to get the families starting to do their sweat equity as soon as we can. So we will be doing the lottery for the first phase as quickly as we can.
And do you have in your head, like, what's the rough range that would mean for income? I know that it varies by family size, but let's say
Yeah.
we're talking about 2 and we're talking about 3 and 4 bedroom homes.
Our goal is always to make sure that it's not more than 30% of a family's income. So one of the things that Erin's been doing is trying to find out what most people are earning based on sectors right now. And some of the data is, Erin, was it 3 years old?
Yeah, I think some of it was from 2018, some of it was from 2020. The report that Chris Rembold shared with us, Fred, the housing report from 2020.
So Ananda, Erin's going back to look at, like, she was just talking to some teachers to see like what are first and second year teachers making, because we think that they're a group that is being challenged right now. So kind of trying to develop those numbers based on what the sector is earning there. But we also have to look at what is our funding gaps between how much we can sell it for and how much the cost of construction is. And as everybody knows, construction costs right now are incredibly high.
Yeah.
So we hopefully will have a number relatively soon.
In South County, I would look at the service sector as the service sector / hospitality sector. It's huge crisis for housing. In addition to teachers, the hospital workers, the whole range there, and the nonprofit sector.
Yeah, the most recent family that we just sold 2 units in Pittsfield, and those units sold at 100. The value of them was $185,000 for 4-bedroom, 0 energy ready condo, 1,400 square feet. Now these were started before COVID, so we had already had a lot of the money into the materials. And they have a mortgage amount of $150,000, and they're paying $1,000 a month with their condo association taxes and insurance in there. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to get tight to that number, but that's always my goal. So we'll know more as the upcoming months happen. And the other thing is, you know, if we got a gigantic donation that could go towards that, I mean, we've been so thankful for the Affordable Land Trust and the town of Great Barrington for working with us, because if it were not for the Mass grant, if it was not for the donations of the property and everything that the Affordable Housing Trust has done to make these units affordable, we wouldn't have even gotten close to the gap, because the cost of construction for affordable housing is way more than what you can sell it for now and still make it affordable.
And with our down payment assistance program, pending funding may also be available, which will provide a 0 interest down payment loan up to $25,000 per family for income qualified individuals. So
Yeah.
that could help to make it affordable.
Yeah, the thing that I hear from people is that the tricky thing for people who are living in South County is all of the AMI numbers are so off to what people are making, to what the market is here, that people are just outside of most of the eligibility programs but can't get housing. And I have, you know, internal numbers that we just ran a cost of living update using a range of data and then testing it against people's lived experience for South County. And it's really different than the county numbers as a whole. And I know we can't build policy around informal numbers, but that's why I'm asking about, like, what are we talking about and how can we start talking about that in the community and get people engaged who are really struggling.
Sure. I think later on, Bill's going to be talking about some of the other initiatives that are going on to build housing, particularly for the service community in Great Barrington that he's become involved with. And that's on our agenda for a little later this evening.
Yeah, no, I think we need to, I will be asking consistently in all projects about, so who is eligible? What would somebody be making to be eligible for this? So that I can talk to other people about this is the range of people who can access different things.
I mean, Ananda, it's interesting that you say that, because one of the things that we have been talking about on the housing, countywide housing coalition, is about doing a series of articles with different voices about that exact issue and putting real numbers and real people's stories to that, and then explaining why it's so difficult for people and trying to like really garner more people into understanding why housing is so important. So I'd love it if Erin and I could, grab a little bit of time, look at your data. That would be super helpful.
I would be more
you
than
know what I
happy
mean?
to share it with you.
Yeah, I'll be coming down to Great Barrington quite a bit in August. So, if there's an opportunity to get together and just talk about some of that stuff, I'd love that. And
Yeah.
certainly take what you have on the ground is super helpful.
I have to say that we are super happy that Central Berkshire Habitat for Humanity has chosen to come to South County. These are the first 2 projects that they've done in South County, this far south anyway. And we hope it's only the beginning of many, many more. I personally think that they have a great model, and part of that includes working with people, helping them, providing the financial counseling and the homeowner counseling that every one of us needs when we buy our first house, and can help make people afford it who didn't think that they could afford to own their own house.
I am a huge fan of Carolyn's, and
Thank
we
you.
get payback.
And the thing that I was just talking at a different meeting, and I pulled out a data from a woman that started on the Habitat journey 12 years ago. And 12 years ago, when her mom, her sister, and she had a very ill child, started with us, they missed the bottom rung of qualifying for Habitat by $15. And we were like, well, that doesn't mean no, that just means let's get you there. So she started working with a financial coach. She identified that if she could go back to school to be a paralegal, she would have a better chance. So I was just pulling her data. When she started, she was below the income line. 2 years, when she closed on her house, she had increased her revenue by double. And I talked to her a month ago because she's putting a garage on her Habitat home, and she is 500 times the income guideline that we have today, because she's been able to have that house that gave her the stability to be able to think about broader things and bigger things for her family. And like, she's just a rock star, and I'm so excited. And she's not an anomaly. We hear this and see this all the time. So if we can get people into the program, get them on the pathway, the sooner the better, we can see long-term outcomes that really benefit the families and all of the extensions of what happens. It really is a ripple effect.
Yeah, I mean, anytime we can get people into a stable situation with a mortgage in South County is a win. I mean,
Yeah.
now, a basic rent for an individual starts at $1,400.
Yeah, we're
So-
going to do better than that.
Right, like that's the situation we're dealing with. All of people's income has to go to housing
Right.
to live here.
And the sad part about that is they don't earn any equity and have nothing to move forward with. So that's why this is also important.
No,
So
I mean, they're one, their car breaks down and that's it.
So it won't be long, and we're all going to be saying like, look what we did together. I'm really excited about this and really jazzed for the opportunity to really have an impact on South County, not just with these 2 projects, but with all the projects that I see that will happen in the future. Fred, you want us to give you a quick update on 40 Grove Street? I don't want to take over your whole meeting on you.
Can I ask just one more question about the?
Oh, sure. Hi, Bill.
Hi. Can you go into a little more detail about the mechanism to keep things permanently affordable and how that works?
Yeah, there's a deed restriction that has to go on the property. And there is also a resale value calculator that the Department of Housing and Community Development calculates. So that's what makes it affordable in perpetuity, is because of having that on there. So it won't just be for the first family that buys it, the affordability continues on. But the people that buy it still get to make, if you were to sell it 5 years later, you still get not only the equity you have in the house, but you also get the accelerated rate, but you're not going to get, the maximum amount, because you have to sell it for somebody that fits in the same AMI as you do, and also make an affordable payment. So, and all of that information will be put out there with our information sessions, but we are also going to be using community navigators that we're going to be getting from Great Barrington, we hope, that will be able to help people fill out the application, go over all of those particulars, run scenarios, because we feel like these are great opportunities, but people need to understand how all of this works, and they need to understand it in layman's terms. And we want to make sure that there's somebody that walks alongside of them in that pathway to make it easier.
That's
Did
great.
that answer your question, Bill?
That's great. Yes, thanks.
Are there any other questions about the North Plain Road site? I'll just mention, because I had looked at the plan earlier, that the location of the houses and the way they're turned or oriented on the site is a little bit of a placeholder right now. The actual houses have been will be looked at by the solar committee that Habitat has, so that each house is going to be, or most of the houses are going to be solar ready there. And so a lot of it is, as Carolyn said, a placeholder. The houses may be turned or flipped or oriented differently, or have slightly different footprint. Also, we haven't had the benefit of the planning board input to date, and they may have a few things to say. In working with the engineer, he's been very careful about water runoff, using the green space in the middle for which I believe is the low spot here now, as sort of a infiltration area, so that we keep all of the code requires us to keep all of the water runoff on site here. So he's been working very carefully on working at that. The access road has been oriented so that a fire truck can go down or can be easily maintained. And so there's a lot of other things that go into this sort of a thing. I want to address one other issue, and that is, there was an article on the Edge the other day that said it was unfortunate that there weren't more units that were built on the site. And I think that the project had a lot of goals. And part of it is the water management, part of it is access, home ownership, but also green space, buffering, things like that. So in my view, and I think most people who've been involved all the way through, we had a lot of goals to hit, and this is the best, I don't want to call it a compromise, but I best synthesis, if you will, of all of those goals coming together into one plan. And that's all I really think I should say about that.
Thanks, Fred. So 40 Grove Street is moving along very nicely. We have been lucky enough to have somebody who, with a lot of experience, has redesigned the inside, but keeping with the character and the flow of it, but giving it a little bit better structural things, and also just better utilization, so that we could have a first floor bathroom. So now it would be a 2 2-bathroom unit. Really, there had been a lot of decay on the wood in the foundation, so that's all being jacked up and reinforced. And they also just looked at some, things are a little bit different nowadays than when the house was originally built in the 1800s. So they wanted to have stackable washer and dryer, and they wanted to have pantry space and good access and good lighting. So they just kind of put together a little bit different design in order to make it a little bit more family friendly. And then we have a commitment to keeping the exterior looking more like it does now. We do have to change a little bit on the one side. It looks like they had put an addition on at one point, or an access porch or something. So they're actually going to lift put on a new roof and then kind of rebuild that area to make it more in alignment, so it's structurally a better roof. Erin, do you want to go to the next slide? And the next slide. So we've had a lot of great neighbors and people from Great Barrington stopping by and giving us ideas. And actually, we had 2 neighbors up the street. D Banks Landscaping came like several Saturdays and said, we'll help, and have just been, great in helping us get the area cleaned out. We had a local landscaper who volunteered to come and start ripping out some of the landscaping that had to be done over, and he's going to come and do regrading. But I just cannot thank the Great Barrington community enough for being all in, for making this home really get off the ground in a great way, and really willing to help both with their thoughts and with their hands in making this work. And as you can see, we've ripped out an awful lot of sheetrock, and they're starting to do the porch rebuild. We have a local person that's going to be making the newel post and all of that back to the original one. So we're lucky that we have craftsmen in our community that are doing that. And we love that the neighbors are keeping an eye on the place. So when we get a dumpster in there, people call and let us know, because we had a little problem at the beginning with people dumping in there that weren't habitat. So the neighbors are kind of keeping an eye on that kind of stuff now. But it's coming along quite nice. There'll be a little bit of a hiatus. We have some carpenter bees that have to be treated so people can safely not get stung. But that'll be coming up in the next couple of weeks. Erin, do we have another slide? There you go. Yep. We're hoping to engage a lot of volunteers over the summer. We'll be putting forth a summer schedule very soon. I'm probably building on Saturdays and maybe 1 extra day a week. We're also looking, we love youth engagement. So if there are groups that have young people 17 or over and they would like to do a day of service and learn some things, we would very much love to entertain having them on the site to feel like they are part of building this house.
What's the anticipated timeline on this project? I realize other people may know this.
Yeah, well, worst case scenario is March of 23, but our hope is if everything continues at the pace that it's going and we don't run in, usually what you run into is the plumbers and the electrician showing up. But we feel pretty confident that we
right now.
Yes. So we have a very, I won't say until he tells me 100% yes, that his company is going to do it. But we feel that we have 2 strong commitments, one from an electrical company and one from a plumbing company, that are going to adopt the project. And when they do that, we feel very confident things will be able to move very quickly because they're large enough to be able to put a team there and get it done. We've had some professional carpenter teams that are signing up to do a week's worth of work. So having that kind of support is really helpful because they require very little instruction. They just kind of work like a choreographed dance team and just go in and do their stuff. So we think that if the COVID numbers stay down and the weather stays good, we're going to make a lot of progress pretty quickly.
That's great.
And when do you plan on selecting your family and putting what you call your lottery out?
Yeah, I think that the latest date that we were looking at is early August. We have to wait for DHCD to approve the plan and everything. But Aaron's already got the plan composed, and as soon as that gets approved, then we'll start. It's a 63-day marketing period or something like that. So we'll have all kinds of open houses out there, but we really want the homeowners to be involved with sweat equity building their house. So the sooner we can get families. We've already gotten many inquiries and calls and whatnot. So we know that there's a big interest in it, and we're really excited to be able to get that. And the other thing that we're really wanting to do is use the lottery in Grove Street to get a list of people that would like to be part of a focus group on affordable housing and what their experiences are, so that we can use that to do advocacy work at the state level for more money coming into our communities for home ownership. Because a lot of times money comes in for rentals, but it doesn't come in for home ownership. So we want to encourage the state to put more money into that. And we also want to be able to have them give feedback on Housatonic as well. Because I'm thinking if there are people that don't purchase 40 Grove Street, there's another project pretty much right around the corner. So we could have a nice.
I know that you have I know that you collaborate with Construct. I would also think about their wait list and assistance lists as good focus group outreach, and the new recovery center also.
Yeah, I know that June and I have talked a lot about the folks at Construct, but I had not thought of the recovery center.
Yeah, I just happen to be working closely with Gary Pratt, and I know, like, it just comes up a lot, right? Because it comes up a lot, because this is what's happening for everybody.
Exactly.
Fred or Bill, when we've been involved with advertising around something like this in the past, do we lean on the town's marketing?
I think Habitat's doing a pretty good job right now. The way this works technically is this is a Habitat project that they are responsible for managing.
Yeah, I think if there's something we can do, we'll do it. We've got a little money to do for advertising and that sort of thing, don't we, Fred?
We do. We have some money, and enough to put an ad in the shopper, say, or something like that. But we can also put something on the town website. The town, is willing to do this as a news release, for instance, or have the town manager speak about it.
Yeah, and I think having the link to the opportunity on the town website and on the Affordable Land Trust would be great. I think Ananda, we just helped the Lennox Affordable Land Trust do all of the marketing for their opportunities.
Yeah.
And the feedback that we got was our hits on all of our ads that we placed, all of our social media. It wasn't that people everywhere we went, like Aaron went door to door to almost every business in Lennox, everywhere. And everybody said, we saw it, we saw it, we saw it. But it just wasn't hitting the price point and the income that made it available for enough people. So we want to make sure that we all learn from that and be able to make sure that we can adapt to that situation and make sure that it's a much bigger window. Now, with the change in increasing the AMI by 8.7%, that opened up some space as well. But I think we need a bigger window.
Yeah, that's great. And I also think that ultimately it's going to take multiple interventions designed for different levels to move what's happening in the market down here and open enough space for people who live here to stay here.
Exactly. And that's a big thing for us. And I'm going to do a shameless plug is we have Habitat Build and Repair Corps, because I know how old your people are. We'll be having opportunities for AmeriCorps members or potential young people to join the Habitat Build and Repair Corps, which is an 11-month workforce training program where their stipend, they get an education award, and they could be part of the future in building construction. It's a construction training program. And they would be the ones that are helping to build these homes. And that also helps cut down on the time it takes to build them, while also building the skills that they can go on and have a living wage career.
Yeah, that's great.
So those opportunities will be opening up June 15th, I think, for applications for joining the Habitat Build and Repair Corps.
I think you also talked to me about some other vocational training
Mhm.
that's going to happen. Some of the trades
Yep.
are going to be you've already had some discussions about the North Plain Road site for some of the trades for training.
Yes, exactly.
I
It would
know,
be really great to build that collaboration with Greenagers, which is holding that also, that holding some of that work in South County also.
Yeah, that is also one of our hopes, because we feel like altogether we can have an impact where like 3 or 4 times the impact than any of us individually. So,
Yeah. I mean, what we've found is around AmeriCorps, we don't do AmeriCorps anymore at Railroad Street. Greenagers does. We don't do it anymore because it was such a bad thing to be doing to people. They couldn't work a second job and they couldn't afford to live on what they were being paid. And I would rather pay somebody for a part-time position at a decent rate. But Will's been able to make it work because he has local youth who tend to apply for those positions, whereas for Railroad Street, it would be people generally from outside the community applying for the positions. So he's a good resource to tap in thinking about how to make something like that successful.
well, with ours, we'll be going into our 4th year. So we actually also do focus on local people as well. But they are now allowed to have a part-time job. And we've actually put in, and we've been lobbying through AmeriCorps to increase the living wage, because it really can't be below poverty. And that's what they were doing. So we're waiting to hear back, so that we're going to be close to like $12 an hour. And it's for, it's really designed for 18-year-olds and up to be learning these trades and whatnot.
Yeah,
And ours is not just about,
for comparison, scooping ice cream, youth are making 20 to 25 an hour with tips.
I need to jump in here because we're an hour
Sorry,
into
we're
our
running out.
meeting and we have some other things on our agenda. So I really do appreciate the update. And I do think that, if anyone has any questions about 40 Grove Street, either now or in the future, we have Aaron and Carolyn's contact information, or we can go down and go to the house or have arrange for a tour or whatnot. Does anybody have any specific questions right now? If not, I'm going to say thanks very much, and
Thank
we're very
you.
pleased. We will be in touch, and thank you for coming tonight. And
thank you all. See you
Thank
soon.
you.
Bye-bye.
on our agenda, we have updates for our 2 basic programs. We run a down payment assistance program, as I mentioned before, and a rental assistance program. The rental assistance program, basically, we had funded it through this year. Construct is administering the program. I have not talked to Jane about renewing it. We have a little bit of money. We could do that. We will have to take a vote on if we are renew for the next phase. They have some other sources that they're using right now. So Anando, this is a program where Construct has been providing grants of money. You are grants of money for people who have been economically displaced, primarily because of the COVID issue. It's a good program. It helps people stay in their house so they don't become homeless. It helps small landlords be able to pay their bill. And it gives a lot of June and her people are really doing a lot of financial counseling and helping people to qualify for whatever other monies that they're available for. So it's been a win-win since the March of 2020, I guess we'd say. On the down payment assistance program, we made some changes last fall to allow us to go to multifamilies. We removed the cap on the total value of the house. The idea being there that if someone was buying a 2 or 3 family house, it might be more expensive, and we could still provide a rental, a down payment assistance to help them to get into that house. This program is a 0 interest. They have to pay it back, but not with any time frame. And it's up to $25,000. I've had one inquiry since our last meeting, but I don't think anything's going to happen with that. I did not know that the new AMI guidelines were out. I had looked for them in February. I did not know that they were coming out in April. So I'll go back and look at them, and I'll talk to the realtor who's involved with this. I have her name, this person, and see if that makes a difference, if the 8.7% increase will make a difference. But it's kind of like the unicorn again. It's if you can afford to buy a house, then you are making too much money to buy a house under our program. So we'll keep it open. One thing that we've talked about is, I know Bill had some discussions with Community Development Corporation, CDC, and we are talking to Habitat too, where some of the people who are buying income qualified houses, we could help out to get into that house by helping them with their down payment. So that reduces the amount of money that they have to come up with out of pocket. So that's in the future. I'm going to roll that right into the next thing. We have put in an application which was approved by the Community Preservation Group Committee, which for $200,000 to operate our programs for the next year. This needs to be approved by Great Barrington Town Meeting in June, and the money will be available for us then with the start of the next fiscal year in July. We put the application in is any of our approved programs for our rental assistance, our down payment assistance, or the other approved programs that we can do, such as buying houses or working in that way to promote affordable housing. So we'll have to have a future discussion about that. I'm assuming that town meeting will support that. For what it's worth, CPC approved everything that came before them this year. They gave us some pushback when we interviewed with them, but in the end, they voted to approve everything, and it's $1.4 million, something ridiculous, something much higher than I thought that they had the money for. So hopefully town meeting will approve that. That's our operating funds for next year. We have about, the last meeting, I put up a finance balance sheet. Nothing has changed. We haven't had any expenses go out since then. I think we've got about $38,000 in various grants and funds that are available right now that are unencumbered. So
What happens to those funds at the end of the town's fiscal year?
they carry over. Most of our funding has been through the Community Preservation Act. They do have a time limit on them. They can call them back if we're not active on them. But so far so good. We haven't come up against any time limitations. Some of them have limitations. They can either be spent on the rental assistance program or the down payment assistance program. And there are others that are more any approved housing use. So some of them, depending on that, come in different classifications. I'd like to, going forward, talk about what our next steps are. You know, right now, these two programs are, I don't want to say dormant, but they're sleeping anyway. They're taking a nap. And we need to have the next effort going forward and figure out how we can leverage whatever monies we have to help create and promote affordable housing. I, for one, think that we should be buying and increasing houses, or either that or replicating the North Plain Road site by acquiring vacant land and developing it, or income houses that are challenged. However, there's a lot of house flippers out there who have the same idea, and it's going to be difficult. We have had some very preliminary discussions with some people who might be willing to sell, not gift, but sell below market if they thought it would be going to affordable housing needs. They would be, what we would gain on it is a permanent affordable housing covenant on those properties. So is that worth something? I think it is. But as of right now, I don't have anything to put in front of you. So, and I had put there alternate private funding. There's nobody knocking on my door offering money. But, and there's lots of people out there who are knocking on doors, asking people for money. So I'd like to see if we could do something like that. I think we need to look for an alternate source of money beyond CPC, because CPC is limited at best. And we need to find another source. We had talked to Chris Rembold and Mark about the ARPA money. As you may know, the town got a fairly large grant for ARPA.
850,000.
That's only for the first year. There's a second year that's about, well, not quite as much. I think it's 500 for the second year. Total of about 1.4 over 2 years.
It's 2 million.
2 million.
2
Okay,
years.
well,
And then the
That-
first year, Mark has suggested 850,000 for affordable housing of the first million.
yeah, well, what he's said is it's not going to come to us. It's going to be a subsidy for the Housatonic School, as I understand, for affordable housing, and for some of the town's infrastructure for the North Plain Road site. It's not he's not talking about adding $850,000 to affordable housing projects. Or he is talking about adding 850,000, but as far as I can see, not creating new projects that don't exist today.
But if we came up with something, we could get some money.
Well, exactly. And I challenge all of you to brainstorm and come up with something, because nobody's going to give us any money just because we say, give us the money, we'll come up with something. I think Bill's exactly right. We need to put something in front of them and say, this is a viable project for X number of dollars. From ARPA money, we can do this. Now, ARPA money has different kind of, well, it actually has no strings on it. So
No. So the community preservation funds are tied to an income level, basically, right? They have strings attached to them in terms of for whom we can use them.
correct. 100% AMI is my understanding.
And does anybody, should have looked this up before this meeting and I didn't, but does anybody off the top of your head, could you give me a range, like for like, I know that it varies per family size, but what's the range we're looking at?
Well,
of income?
I don't have the 2022 numbers, but the 2021 numbers was roughly what, 65,000, Bill, or 67,000 for a family of two, 80,000 for a family of five.
Okay,
Bill's
That's-
looking it up right now.
I mean, I just wanted to
For
have
2022, add 9% to that.
Yeah, so I just wanted to have something in my head.
65, call it 65 to 80,000
Yeah.
total income.
So, I walk once a day, I walk by at least one window of real estate listings. The bottom listing for Great Barrington that I walk by, the lowest price is close to 400,000 for a ranch that is not a $400,000 ranch and there's a single story, two bedroom brick building on half an acre that's posted at $500,000
All right,
with a flat roof.
I
so-
understand that, but there are a
But-
lot of stuff that
what-
gets sold without listings.
No, what
and-
I'm saying is, I think that one of the things that we need to be brainstorming is what are the options, what are the creative ways we can help the community move with the market? Because what we've heard so far are really important projects that are down the road. And every day I hear about people losing housing, having to move outside of this community to continue to be anywhere near here, whether it's for rental or for a purchase. So what I'd be interested in thinking about are ways that we could create a fund that will not be a loan-based program, but will be a co-investing program and could drop a price down into a reasonable level for a moderate income person family. So let's say you build a 3-year pilot. It might need to be larger than this, but you could definitely do something with this. You build a 3-year pilot with $500,000 in the fund each year. Somebody could apply to that project for up to 100,000 as a down payment. That's a co-investment with on the home. And I'd tie it, I'd do what you guys I've been doing already, make it proportional to that rate of 30% of income going towards housing. So some people might only be eligible for 20,000 for the down payment. Somebody else might be eligible for more. It gets their mortgage into a reasonable payment level. It lets them build equity, and then you build a mechanism that upon resale, the proportional amount of our investment comes back to us. That's a reasonable amount of money to raise.
$500,000 a year for 3 years.
Yeah.
I mean, I think anything less than that, you don't impact the market. Because
Exactly. And I'm
when you're
actually
talking about
worried-
up
I'm
to
actually
100,
worried that we might not be able to have enough houses at the low end of the market to make that work, but it might need to be a bit larger than that, but I think you could pilot something for that, and I think you could raise it, and you could make an argument for a chunk of that being ARPA. And I do think there are private donors for that. I think there are bank foundations that would donate to that.
yeah, I mean, I see the value of it. I think it could be great. I worry that we're going to actually affect them, if we do this enough, are we going to affect the market? And, the realtors go, oh, anytime a house comes on the market for 300,000, the Affordable Housing Trust will help you buy it. And all of a sudden nothing's, everybody else is chasing that $300,000 house right now. So I don't know.
I think you're talking about, a handful of families per year. Like if we could affect 15 families over 3 years, that's a big deal in a community this size. And
It is. And
pilot it, then you can say at the end, there were things about it that didn't work.
And one of the things I like about it is that it's going to be the program that you've sketched out is a rolling program, so that, you know, if somebody sells their house in 5 years, it comes back to our fund there. Keep in mind that we're not creating that house as a permanently affordable house, but we're allowing them to grow their own equity.
Yeah.
uh,
And I think
there.
you've got it, you do it parallel, right? Like we keep doing more and more on the affordable side too. So to me, the goal is to create a full spectrum of entry points to the market to retain people in our community who right now are having to leave.
What do you think, John?
Well, actually, Bill and I have been discussing this. And it's extremely hard right now to raise the money, period. But Bill and I have been thinking about some possible alternatives.
I was considering going to the employers in the community.
Yeah, setting up an LLC and going to the employers in the community who want the housing.
Yeah.
That's one way to do it. But I can tell you that it is not going to be easy in Great Barrington to do this.
Why is that?
Why is that?
Yeah. I think there's employers who are
Well, we have to find,
already doing it.
well, then we should sit, then you and I should talk to those employers.
So there have been, Bill has been involved with a couple of different initiatives. I know Robbins Candy was very interested in workforce housing.
Yeah.
And organized a number of initiatives. And then there was a lot of talk about the Maple Street Nursing Home as purchased collectively for workforce housing.
Correct.
Almost pulled it off.
Almost pulled it off. But if only we had a half a dozen of those. Bill, do you want to talk about some of the programs that you've been involved in? And is there any touch point that we can?
Well, yeah, I was just, I've been talking to a few employers in town who have actually bought properties to house their employees. And if we could, well, there's a couple of different things I've been thinking about. One is if a new developer comes in and wants to put up some rental housing, we may be able to buy down some of those rents by contributing some money to put some kind of restriction on the rents, either for 10 years or a longer period, to just buy down the actual rents so that their investors still get their money and people can afford to live there. I think some of this 200,000 we have available could be used for that if it comes up.
Have you had conversations with investors about that?
No, I've had conversations with a developer who seemed willing to investigate, go down that route.
I've had conversations with a number of non-developers, but people who might be willing at some point to contribute.
And again, no developer or no foundation and no wealthy individual are going to just give us a blank check or give anyone a blank check, without due diligence and a plan, which has a little bit more concrete anchor to it.
Yeah, I mean, but that's doable. We're just talking now.
I understand.
Here's my question. Why a LCC or LLC?
So the only way that the housing trust can actually purchase a property is if they use only CPA funding. Otherwise, like any other municipal entity, we have to issue an RFP saying, we'd like to buy a house for $300,000. Who'd like to sell us one? So if we want to buy on the open market, we have to be funded by the CPC with CPA money. And then we don't have to deal with 30B. We can just buy it.
Even if we have ARPA money?
But the only way we
We
can,
can't use ARPA money to buy it.
Oh.
But we could use ARPA money to rehab it or bring it up to code or add another unit.
What money can we use to buy it?
Well, we don't have.
Other-
we're not-
forget about the
The only
CPC.
money we can use to buy it,
Forget about the CPC.
well, that's the only money we can use to buy without going through a 30B process. So we are totally dependent on the CPC giving us CPA funding enough, $500,000 to buy one house. We can then sell it at an affordable price. So we're going to take a hit, but we're not going to be out 500,000. We might be out 250, 300,000 to make the
So
house.
that-
affordable.
so that mechanism would be specific to shifting our capacity around purchases.
Right.
Have you considered partnering with Construct in that capacity?
We could, but I'm not quite sure how they would.
Well, I mean, I think it would be a conversation, and I wouldn't want to go too far in that conversation without Jane at the table, right? But the reason I'm bringing up Construct is because they're Construct, but what I'm really thinking about is in general, is there an advantage to creating a whole new entity? Or is there a possibility to work with existing entity that is also a nonprofit?
The concern is using state money or federal money or anything
Right,
like
right.
that, because it comes with all sorts of constraints. You have to, pay this standard wage for all the work.
Yeah,
And
But you don't have to do that.
there's eligibility requirements.
nonprofits are navigating that kind of stuff every day. You couldn't have a better set of experts for navigating both proposal side of things and the constraints around different types of funding.
Yeah. But it doesn't help us buy the property initially. I
No,
think
I
once we
mean,
buy the
that's what
property,
I'm
we're going to hand it
saying.
over to Construct or somebody else. We're not going to try and develop it,
Like,
but we can get it,
yeah.
get funded.
I mean, we're committed to working with Construct and with CDC and with Housing of the Southern Berkshires. We're also very aware of not competing with them
Yeah.
in terms
You
of
wanna compete with-
filling in
for
the
funding.
gaps in the market. Up until this year, most of what CDC and Construct have been doing is rental housing. That's where the grant money is, that's where the foundation money is, that's where they're putting it together. What nobody's been doing in Great Barrington is helping people buy 1 to 3 family houses. That's
Yeah.
the gap in the market. That's the step up for, well, quite frankly, middle-class America, to put down roots, to build equity. And that's kind of the last couple of years, the area we've been trying to concentrate on, not trying to duplicate Construct's work. We've partnered with them on a couple of different things. June was very instrumental in putting together the Habitat, helping Habitat put together their proposal for the RFP for the North Plain Road site. So that's where we've been. We
Yeah.
don't want to compete with them. We want to fill in the gaps for the marketplace.
Yeah, I don't think I'm suggesting either. I'm just suggesting that we explore before creating an additional entity that is not a nonprofit entity, that we explore partnerships with existing nonprofit entities around the work that we want to get done.
Mhm.
And so if the need we have is a mechanism for purchasing for whatever it is we're wanting to implement, I think we should talk with existing entities before creating a new one.
Understood. If that works, it's great.
So-
I mean, with the other example we've got in town is Forest Row for Berkshire Land Trust. They own the land, and the houses have to go through them to be approved for resale. that's kind of a successful land trust model
Yeah.
project.
They're not so inexpensive anymore, though,
They're not.
many of them.
So I'm hearing two ideas. And Bill, am I understanding your proposal is really about, well, I guess I feel like I heard two things. One, that there's a need for a mechanism so that purchases could happen. And then there's also, it sounded like the purchase ideas are around rentals. Is that right?
It would be great, I think, to do 3 families, multi-unit or
Multi-family unit.
buy a single family house and add a unit to it, add a studio apartment or something. Because that makes the house more affordable and the bank likes it better and all those things.
So it's about creating rental options. And
I like
impact-
creating rental and home ownership simultaneously because you can actually, the trust can then actually sell the house to someone at a reduced rate and get much of the money back into the trust to buy another house, and then use ARPA money or something to create another unit. That sort of
So
thing.
our capacity on, so there's the issue of like being able to do the purchases around the rental, but the other thing is our actual funds are limited enough, even if we added ARPA funds, that we really can't impact the rental market that much if we're the purchaser.
That's correct.
I
So
think,
the
the
need
value of
to-
the value of the rental is to subsidize the home ownership.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's huge value in rental and I think there's huge value in home ownership, and boy, does our community need both. It seems to me that the challenge to doing anything viable in either area is the current funding.
Yes.
And that we have to come up, and I would be interested in coming up with 2 semi-detailed proposals as the next step that are about advancing both opening the rental market and looking at ways we can support families to move with the purchase market.
Agreed. And I think it would be great. The only thing that we're aware of is that there are quite a few number of affordable rental units that are now in the pipeline, that are under construction, that are coming on board. Now, those are largely concentrated in one area. They're not in neighborhoods.
Yeah.
I think that what we could do would be to do like in the Grove Street neighborhood or the Housatonic neighborhood or the East Street neighborhood, those kinds of areas there, so that people have options, so that they don't have to go living in a big apartment building or on a big rental where.
Yeah, I'd like to see affordable units in every neighborhood in town, but. I mean,
Great. Make that.
That's one of the options that we need in this town is affordable rentals and affordable housing purchases in every neighborhood.
And I think the multifamilies are the way to go because you hit both things at the same time. You
That's
increase
right.
a couple more rental units and a home ownership unit. It makes it easier for someone. It's easier for someone to buy a multifamily house because you have two additional incomes paying the mortgage. There's not that many of them available.
I mean, I think we should do that. I think we should do that. And that what I was talking about, because we need things that can move faster than us.
Well, yeah, because if you take the North Plain roadside, it's going to be 6 or 7 years before all of those units come on market from the time we started. And you're only talking, a handful of units at that point.
Right.
You can't really satisfy the need.
And let's say we can move our fund capacity at some reasonable rate. I think we're still talking about only being able to purchase one multi-unit a year.
Yep.
For a while, and that is good, but we can impact more people if we couple that with some kind of co-investing program. And the biggest question to me is really about what are the what are the mechanisms and options we have for structuring that? Like, you know, I get concerned that any move you try to make on something like that would impact somebody's eligibility for first-time homeowner programs. So I think there's research to be done about how to build something like that in a way that reaches the people who are most ready and would normally be able to access other programs that really are effective at getting people into homeownership for the first time. So I think, you know, it needs some research and work, but I think that both ideas are viable for raising funds. But we need to be able to show a larger impact than kind of one thing per year, I think, to be able to really do a good job at fundraising.
Yeah.
Out of the 200,000 that CDC has approved, does that include buying property?
Yes. Not that we could buy anything with that, but yes.
Bill's correct. We put in the application for any approved housing use, which includes buying property.
Have we considered any ways that we could incentivize or subsidize the so-called tiny housing option? It's not a solution across the board, but it is a good solution for some people. And I'm wondering about coming up with creative ways that could incentivize people to sell or do a long-term lease on a small part of their land in order for a local family to be able to, you know, they'd still deal with maybe the bank, or maybe we'd help with actually the home construction on a tiny house too.
Yes, we could do that.
You have thought about that?
Yeah, and pretty much it's an accessory dwelling unit, which is anywhere in town at this point by zoning. So I think tax incentives might be helpful if the town was willing to do that, but I don't see that coming right away.
Yeah, but if it's,
But yes, I
like,
think
if we're talking about if you were talking about structuring a tax incentive, like for a limited time and a limited number per year or something.
Right,
So
exactly.
not having a huge impact on the tax base, but you are incentivizing this option for housing. I mean, I'm thinking about it as also a home ownership option. You know, there are people in the community who would be interested in small land and putting up a tiny home on it. But there aren't a lot of lots available like that.
that's right.
But if we incentivized people to say, hey, I want to be part of solving the housing crisis in Great Barrington, I want my neighbors to be able to live here. And I have enough land that I could do a long-term lease or sell whatever the zoning requires for a tiny house. I wonder if there are people who would be interested. And what our role could be in making that happen.
Yeah,
I
so-
think we could treat it just as we would any other housing use, but it still falls under the parameters of income qualifications and
As long as it's CPA money.
Well, pretty much any tax money, but yes, CPA money. Any state or federal money has strings attached.
But they're not all tied to the same measure necessarily. For
Okay.
example, the ARPA funds.
Right.
Because tiny housing is a place where small amounts of money actually could do more.
Yeah.
And so that's part of my interest in thinking about it, given the kind of pool we're starting with.
Yes,
And it can go pretty fast.
yeah, in conversations with the CDC, they were talking about putting up some tiny houses on their property on Bridge Street. And we said we'd be happy to, help fund that.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's still in the
Mike?
works or not.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pro working with all of the established organizations to
Yeah.
get housing up. I see with those projects, though, that everything we're talking about is a down the road solution. I want to make sure we're also talking about how could we work with the power of individuals for action now?
Well, that was another thing I was thinking of, is just acting as a group that brings together a group of employers in town. I know the
Mhm.
hospital would probably be in, I know most of the restaurants would be interested in doing something like that. And making them part owners of whatever property, I don't know, but we'd have to put something like that together. And that would be our function primarily, is to bring people together as a group to start buying properties in town.
I think it's great to have all these ideas, but I think we need to focus a little bit more so that we can come up with an action plan, or at least an outline of an action plan that makes one or more of these ideas. I'm getting a little confused by how wide ranging our discussions are going. So I think that we need to do a little bit more of, I just want to bring it back a little bit so that we can sketch out each idea a little bit. And maybe, Ananda, if you could put together one or two ideas, and Bill, if you have some ideas, or John, and I'll try to do the same thing, and we can compare notes there. It is now 10 minutes past 8. I did want to talk about our meeting schedule. It turns out that I had hoped that set a regular meeting date, and I was hoping that we could do it on this Wednesday, the third Wednesday, but it turns out that Wednesdays aren't going to work out. And I've got most of your requirements for other times, and I think I've sort of distilled it down to where's my notes here? What I sent you, John, this afternoon. So the Wednesdays aren't going to work out for one or two people. It looks like either the second or fourth Thursday would work, or maybe the third Tuesday of the month would work. And in a pinch, maybe the second Tuesday. So we're looking at second or fourth Thursday, or second or third Tuesday. Does any of those dates work for everybody? Does anybody have an objection to any of those?
Tuesday.
The Tuesdays are better for me than the Thursdays, but I could make either work.
I can make anything work, pretty much.
Tuesday, I can't make work.
Okay. How about Thursday, John?
Usually I can do that.
I've got a board meeting on the third Tuesday, Historic District Commission, but I could meet on the second or fourth Thursday. I think I had, say, the fourth.
Yeah, the second would be better for me. I have board meetings every other month on a Thursday, and it would be easier if we did the second on the fourth Thursday.
How about that? We're gonna try the fourth Thursday in June?
I'm sorry, could we do this? I was saying, can we do the second? My conflict is periodically with the fourth.
Okay. John, what do you think?
We can try, I can try that.
So I'll try the second for this month. Garfield may have a temporary, not everybody's gonna make every meeting. But is there anyone else on this call tonight, either trustees, citizens, or media, who would like to speak?
Hold it one sec. I got a daughter calling. Hi,
Good, mute yourself.
I'm in the middle of a meeting. Let me call you back.
Doesn't look like it. I don't see any hands.
If anyone would like to speak, please either raise your hand or make yourself known to me. Seeing none. In media time, we're going to,
One thing, Fred, I think, you know my background, and I think if we can do it, and Bill and I have talked about this, is to try and bring some private money in to do some of the things, but we have to have we can't just go and say, we're gonna do it, will you fund it? We have to have a written plan, a description of what we want to do.
I think we all know what kind of a business plan we need. So
Yeah.
I would like to either to use the next meeting to develop that. If we could primarily spend the next meeting working on that.
Yeah, do you want John and I to come up with something rough to start with?
I mean, there may be, there may be groups like the Kraft Foundation and others who would be willing to contribute to us.
Bill, I can't ask you to do that because of the open meeting law, but if you wanted to do it on your own, that would be fine.
Okay,
So I'm going to ask to adjourn the meeting unless there's any objection. And I'm going to stop the recording.
okay.
Good night,
Okay.
everyone. Thank you all for coming.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.